not one of my greatest moments. So I need to make sure I'm actually, can y'all see my introduction here? First time in this course.
Yes.
Okay, good. Woohoo! I'm on the right screen. Welcome everybody. I'm very, very glad to be here with you today. Appreciate you being able to move to a Wednesday instead of Thursday. My wife is having surgery next week. In fact, I will not be at work Monday or Tuesday for sure. And I'm not planning on even answering emails. So I'm gonna be taking time off to be with her. So if you absolutely need something, I do normally look at emails. I mean, I'll be sitting in a waiting room anyway, so more than likely I would answer it. But just be aware I may be a little slower to answer than normal Monday and Tuesday of next week. Welcome to the Cyberops course, the least Cisco of Cisco courses that we have. We have pretty short first two modules here, and then we'll start moving forward. Nothing really is due in the class for you until this Sunday, which was a couple of the labs that are, some of them are just written labs. Some of them are, one of them is the actual lab of you putting the local virtual machines on your Virtualbox installation. Be aware again, you don't have to do that. We do have, got a student here now working in Cyberops. Inside of Netlabs, we do have for you an entire Netlabs course, the Cyberops Associate course. And you can see that this, by the way, is where I will have you do your skills assessment. So your hands-on will have to be done in here just so I have a record of it. But you'll see here are the labs that are available inside of Netlabs, all of these. And then they've actually started a new thing, which is launched the Cyber Range, which is really cool. It boots up all the machines in the pod and lets you just create your own little items that you want to do. But you'll see the very first lab in Netlabs doesn't happen until module 3, which is identifying running processes on a Windows box. So be aware. You also, one of the things I know I mentioned last time, but want to make sure I mention again, anytime you're doing a lab inside of here, you want to use the documentation from inside of Netlabs. So let me just go ahead and schedule this. And again, be aware there are bunches of pods. So do not think that there's only 4 pods available. There are 20 different pods available. So you should not have any trouble finding a pod for use.
How do you know which pod you're picking?
It's up at the top here. It just tells you the pod name. So this is the Cyberops pod 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you get, say, let's go out here to pod 20. If I want to use it, I would just click in here, and that's going to give me pod 20.
You click beneath the pod. That's where
Correct.
you connect. Okay.
Exactly. You click beneath the pod itself. So again, let me go back in here and pick that right here, identifying running processes. Yeah, if you just click anywhere underneath the pod. So if you want pod 3, you just click in anywhere in this row right here. And that goes for future too. So if you know on Saturday, you're going to have time, you know, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, you could schedule labs for in the future. I just ask if you do schedule them in the future that you use your labs. And if you find out you're not going to be able to use it, that you can end that reservation. So I'll actually do a quick reservation for this weekend, and I'll show you how that happens. So now you'll see I've got a reservation for the 13th, this Saturday, from 2 to 4. All right. And so when 2 o'clock comes, I'll be able to hit the enter lab button. But right now, since I find out, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be able to do this lab, I've scheduled it. If you can remember, it's not terrible, especially with the Cyberops labs, because we've got 20 pods. But if you can remember, just go in here and cancel the reservation if you're not going to use it. That way the pod's not being held for your reservation that you're not going to use. If you want one right now, for instance, let's say I wanted to do, and I want to show you, like I'm doing now, the lab, I can always just pick one of the labs, and then I just find the red line, and the red line is the current time. So if I click right here, that means start the lab right now. And then I can do up to 4 hours. Then we also have the ability, once you get towards the end of your hours, so like if I do 2 hours and 14 minutes, when there's 10 minutes left to go, actually I believe it's 15 minutes left to go, the system will ask me, you're about to have your reservation in, would you like to extend it by 30 minutes? You can extend it. So you can do that up to twice. So just be aware there are ways to extend it if no one has a lab scheduled directly after yours. You'll notice now though, I've got this lab scheduled for right now for the next 2 hours and 13 minutes. And so I can enter the lab. And at this point, the devices are booting up, or the virtual machines. There are no devices in this particular pod type. And once I get in here, I will show you the documentation that you need to be using, because it does say modified for Netlabs. So when we get in here and you want to do this lab, you want to be using this document right here to do the lab. If you download the one from inside the curriculum, it may or may not work, because the labs are changed at times to match what is available inside of Netlabs. So make sure you're using the documentation here. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Now you can also submit it in from the Netacad, right?
Correct. Yep. So you can download this and use this one, but the one from Netacad, if you go in here right now, so this is lab 303. If I go into the curriculum right now and I go down to, I'm gonna click course index, unselect everything, do just labs. If you go down here and download 303, okay, so this is the lab. You'll notice that this one does not say modified for Netlabs. So if you try to do this lab right here on Netlabs, it may not work correctly, because you need to be using this document. Notice how there's even more pages to this document. So
you can't answer the questions from the curriculum and submit that one, right? Because this is a PDF. You really can't edit this one.
Yeah, but you can here's something you need to remember with PDFs. You can always open them up in Word now. So I would just download this document from Netlabs here. So I'm just going to download it into my documents. Okay. And once it's here, all you have to do is open up Word, and any modern version of Word now. And this is actually Word 2016. So I don't even have a modern version of Word. I've got older and dirt version of Word. But I can open other documents. I can go to my browse and wherever I downloaded it. So I downloaded it in the documents. I got to go find this thing. Here it is. Lab 303. You'll notice it'll convert it. Yep. And so you can convert it, enable editing. You can do your lab. And then when you start, it says here, double click, what is LS? You can type in your answer. If you want to type in your answer here. This is my answer, and I may want to actually make it where you can see the text. That's funny. And then you can just upload this document as a Word document into Netacad. So that's what I would do. I would download these. What did you observe in the window? And you just type in your answer here. I saw, and you may have to, depending on how this thing works, you may have to tell it to use this. I was able to blah, 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 whatever. And then you can save this with your name. Just do file, save as your name, and upload this in Netacad. Does that make sense? So yes. Download the document from inside of your lab reservation. Okay. And then just open it in Word, fill out any answers that you need to as you're doing the labs, and then upload it. And that is if you're using our Netlabs system to do the labs, which is one easy way to do it. Okay. One easy way for you to do it. And I make it available so that in case you don't have the resources to load the devices locally. Questions about that? I'll show you the other option of how to do this in a minute. Okay. Let's go back here. First time in this course, one of the things about this course I do like is it goes in and talks about the fact that you've got two different lab environments. You've got two virtual machines that you're going to be using. One is the Cyberops workstation that you download, and the other is a Security Onion workstation. You can run the Cyberops virtual machine as little as 1 gig of RAM, but you need up to 4 gig for the Security Onion. So you're looking at, if you're running both of them, you would need a laptop or a desktop that had at least 5 gig of free RAM to be able to run these particular VMs. And I'm going to show you the lab that shows you how to download and install these locally. We do have packet tracers, not as many in this, but there is a packet tracer, some packet tracer labs that we use for this particular course. So you will need to download packet tracer. For this class, do not download version 8 of packet tracer. you should be using one of the 7.3.3 or 7 versions of packet tracers. Version 8 of packet tracer is only for CCNA 7 version 7.02. So I wouldn't even download version 8 yet. But I will say version 8 is neat in that it has a lot of rack and stack ability that we don't have in packet tracer right now.
Can you have both running 7, 8 at the same time, or no?
I have not tried to load both. Actually, I've got, you should be able to, you just have to actually go in and execute the executable from the version you want to run. I do have 8 installed on this local machine right now because I was playing with it. But you should be able to go in if you can drill down and pull your own executable, pull your own shortcut out to the executable. It would probably work. Now, only one of those versions will open up automatically when you double click a packet tracer, and it will probably be 8 that opens up. You may want to load your virtual machine to have 8 on and then use 7.3.3 or 3.2 in the others. So I do like this. Be aware, gel is bad. Okay. In other words, we're going to teach you some techniques in here that in a sandbox is fine for you to run these scanning tools, run this on your network, and you could be arrested and or lose your job. So that is why they make an ethical hacking statement here as part of this course, which is neat. This whole first section, folks, is just general information about people losing their identities, people having ransom companies, looking at nations now doing targeted things like Stuxnet, or even more nefarious things of using in fact, we now have, and we know that countries have basically military hacking groups that are responsible for pushing the purposes of nation states. And there's a good video here. Now, I want to actually pull over and show you this lab. This is the lab if you want to install the virtual machines locally. Okay, it tells you that you need a host computer with at least 8 gigs of RAM and 40 gigs of disk space free, and you need to be able to download Oraclebox, Virtualbox, and the virtual machine images. The images are not massive, but they're not small either. I've got them right here. So here's the images. I've got the Cyberops. There's the Cyberops OVA and the Security Onion OVA, both of those here. In fact, I need to just rename this one because I had it downloaded before. But these 2 images right here, you can see, 4 gigs. And I believe this one is about the same, about 4 gigs, maybe a little bit smaller. Yep, 3 gigs. So these are the 2 main items you will download. And you download them by clicking on this navigate to the VMs page. And when you click here in the lab, if you're logged into Neticat, it will take you over here to download these 2 OVAs that you can download locally. All right. Now, if you're behind the Great Firewall of China, you have to use that one. But for everybody else, we can download them right here. Now, once you've done that, you're going to have Virtualbox installed. So you have to install the latest version of Virtualbox. You have downloaded as part of the labs, you've downloaded those images, and then you just import as an appliance. And that's a little bit weird, but you basically go in here and say File, Import Appliance. You go and find those OVAs that you've downloaded. Okay. And click Next, and basically just accept everything. Now, if you got a little extra, and you can bump the RAM up or whatever you can, but it really doesn't matter. It does not hurt, and I believe actually inside of the lab itself, it tells you to select reinitialize. Let me see if that actually tells you to do it. I think it does, maybe it doesn't. Click import. Okay, so no, they don't have you reinitialized. Sometimes I believe it's on one of the ones you do it, but click import. And at this point, it's going to actually bring in this Cyberops workstation for you to use as one of the machines in your labs. And if you get that, we'll just say change network settings and make it bridged. So basically we're going to bridge so that this machine has internet access. Takes it a little bit to import. and then you can just click and power it on. Now, you can make these machines run in VMware Workstation if you want to. You just have to do a little bit of playing around with them. So it may be just as easy to download Virtualbox. But it is starting to boot. And should be Cyberops for the password. And now you've got your machine up and running. So you can see it was not very hard to get it installed at all. And if you want to do the other machine, if you want to do the security onion, you just do the exact same thing. You just do File, Import Appliance. Go in here, go to your downloads, find that security onion. Next, import. And it will import it. Now, I will tell you, if you're having issues, many times it's because you don't have enough disk space, or you may not have enough RAM. Or one of the things that can happen sometimes is the image can be corrupted when it downloads. That's very rare, but it has happened in the past. So just be aware if you're running into any issues, that could be some of them. Have any of you tried to actually do this lab and load the machines locally?
Yes.
Okay, did you have any problems?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I've got one student who was having problems, and I'm trying to get more information on it from him, and we'll see if we can't find out what's going on. But typically there's not a lot of little things that can go wrong here. You may have to turn on virtualization in your BIOS if you're running it on a laptop. That's the only thing I've also seen. But
Terry, yeah, I didn't have any problems either. If you want to, do you have an error message from the student?
I don't right now. They haven't sent it to me yet.
Okay, well, if you can't figure it out, if you want to shoot it over to me, go ahead, because I use Virtualbox in most of my classes, and
Okay.
I've probably seen every challenge. I haven't done it with these OVAs other than when I did it for me, but
Right.
Virtualbox is Virtualbox. It's pretty simple.
It is pretty simple, and so I'm thinking I'm going to think it's probably going to end up being a lack of resources. So we'll see.
Either that, or the one other thing I've seen lately is if he has an HP laptop, and this was a booger to figure out, but I figured it out. HP laptops are turning on, oh gosh, I'm a Linux person, so it's a Microsoft like Hyper-V or something like that automatically. Okay. And I've got the PowerShell code that you can type to turn it off for good. But that would be like my last thing to look at.
Right. Okay. I'll find out. Like I said, he didn't give me any details, but I'll see if I can't get some details and we'll figure it out. But thank you very much, because like I said, most time it loads just like this. I mean, there's very little issues with it loading. It just pops right up and everything works fine. The only problem I've seen, and the only issue, and the reason I put the Netlabs out there, is that some people just simply don't have the resources to run these virtual machines, although these are fairly small. But if they don't, then you've got the Netlabs available to you. It's also fun to kind of try both. And also, honestly, one of the things that I've found with the Netlabs is I know these are going to always work. I know this is going to be here, and I know I control this environment, so I don't have to worry about somebody having a problem with their laptop. So this is kind of, I want you to have both available to you, but you use the one you feel comfortable with. You also need to realize what I want you to do is use the one you're going to be teaching with. So if you're going to be teaching using Virtualbox and you're going to have your students load the Virtualbox locally, then I would strongly suggest that's how you do the majority of your labs. But play around in my Netlabs too, because it's always fun to spin it up and play with it. And especially, I'm going to end this reservation, especially if you get a chance to play with the class and play with our, see, it's called the Cyber Range. So you can go down here and basically you can go down here and say, no lab launch Cyber Range. You just pick any. Remember, we have 20 of them, so we got plenty of them.
Did you have to create these labs specifically for Netlab, or
Netlabs did it. NDG works with Cisco to modify the labs. we have to load this on our local server. So we have our own server resources, but Netlabs is a product made by a company called NDG or Net Dev Group. And they work to help build out this to support the academy. So we use this for our Cisco. We use it for our VMware classes, our Palo Alto classes. We use it for about everything because while this class, you could pretty easily load 2 VMs on a machine. If you try to teach somebody VMware, they can't load 5 different virtual machines. They don't have the resources to load that kind of pod. But here's the full cyber range where you can just kind of play around with. There's no.
How do they charge you per student? How is it a fee or?
They charge you a yearly. NetDev Group charges like a fee for license for the product, and then we have our own. We actually are using NetLab Plus, so we're using. But they do charge basically the number of pods you have active determines the cost, and that's the initial cost. And then you have a support fee per year of, up to $5,000 if you have a 64 pod.
So it ain't cheap.
Well, it's not cheap, but at the same time, it's not too bad either. Because once you pay this original cost, once we got this cost paid, and see, we've had these for 15 years. We've been using it forever. We're down to paying maybe $15,000 a year, and we're able to support hundreds and hundreds of online students. There's a lot of automation in here that goes on. Like when I end this reservation, everything gets returned to a snapshot. And this is just one type of pod. I also have, we have all kinds of pods that allow us to do things like, I'm not trying to sell their product, but I'm just showing you what they've got. This is the best way I've found to do online education, honestly. But like this, I can go in here and we have 16 actual real gear pods. And when I do a reservation here, it's going to boot up real gear and all the process is automated. It cleans the gear, makes sure there's nothing on it, make sure it loads correctly, make sure it's available for the student, and boots up virtual machines that are all mapped to the correct VLANs. So it can do some stuff that's pretty darn amazing. And I just haven't found anything that's better at what I want to do. Yes, you can build your own with some stuff, but you won't have the scheduling engine and the ability to roll out automation like we do. We can literally automate hundreds of pods and with one Python script. So it's pretty neat, but it's available for you. Be aware if you need it, it's available. If not, then you do have the ability to load locally Virtualbox and do your labs right here. Okay. Now, one of the things not given to you, like one of the first labs needs a Windows box. So you would have to have a Windows machine that's hosting this Virtualbox. If you don't, then you'll have to go load you a Virtualbox or Windows box in your virtual machines. So just be aware of that it's there. Nobody else had problems with this, so we shall move forward. This is pretty much a given. Amateurs, we know them, script kiddies, hacktivists, financial gain. A lot of people are trying to make money now hacking. I always tell people it's a lot simpler to hack somebody than to rob a bank because you're a lot less likely to get shot hacking somebody versus robbing a bank. And then more and more, we're seeing this. We're seeing long-term hacks. I mean, like for instance, they hacked RSA security to get the keys for the fobs that they then used to hack General Dynamics and Northrop Grumman. It's so funny because they said, it's going to be years and years before the Chinese have a stealth fighter anywhere near like us. A senator said that the next day that they rolled out a stealth fighter that looked almost exactly like our stealth fighter. And this happened to have happened a couple years after, the company that made our stealth fighter was hacked due to this very long-term hacking process. So it doesn't take a lot to understand what's going on out in the real world.
They don't really talk about how to catch these people and what the criminal punishment is, do they?
No, they don't. And that's something because they don't really get into they get into a little bit in module 2 here where they talk about fighting the war against cybercrime, but they don't really talk about the the law and ethics. One of the things I will say is, it's funny. This is something crazy happened the other day. I was duck hunting. I come in, get the boat out of the water, and I would come up to, I'm walking around the boat and I look down on the ground. And there's a bag of weed. And I'm like, huh, okay. Well, happens to be a sheriff's deputy sitting in the parking lot where we were at. And so I went up to him. I said, sir, I just want you to know there's a bag of weed over here on the ground. And I said, I'm crazy, but I probably wouldn't come and tell you about my weed. And he started laughing. He said, no, but he come over and I gave it to him. And he said, here's the crazy thing. And he said, this is about $100 worth. He said, but we wouldn't even prosecute for this. He said, we would just take it and destroy it. We wouldn't prosecute at all. Well, that's kind of like cybercrime. If it doesn't go over $5,000, they don't care. I mean, it's not going to be prosecuted. And even if it goes over $5,000, unless it is a industry that is deemed critical, like for instance, if it happened to be someone hacking into electrical systems or water systems or those types of things, and yes, they would get involved. But for the most part, there's very little chance of people getting caught if they're outside the U.S., especially there's very few extradition treaties. Where people obviously get in trouble, if you're in the U.S. and you do get caught, you're going to jail. But I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so many external attacks. It's just so much easier than other types of crime that they're using it to make money. We've also got these new IoT devices. Why new IoT devices? Why are they such a challenge for us? Anybody know? I mean, proliferation is one. I've got, 6 or 8 Blink cameras at my house. So each one of those little IoT devices runs on batteries, is a possible vector for being hacked. So that's one, the fact there's so many of them out there. Another one is, think about it, most IoT devices are pretty simple, dumb devices. So building in encryption and building in security on those devices is kind of tough because you don't have a lot of extra processing power to run that. So it's an interesting thing we've got going on with TVs that have got internet connections and stoves and everything else with internet connections. One thing you do need to know for the exam, by the way, is the difference between personally identifiable information, personal protected health information, and personal security information. So know those 3 terms and what they are. I always tell people to be as paranoid as you possibly can because your data is always at risk. We just had my wife just got a document in the mail saying that one of the healthcare providers her information was with had been hacked, and so she's going to sign up for the free identity monitoring because of it. And that's pretty much module 1, so it's pretty easy. Nothing in that module much. I do want to go over module 2 real quick because this is what the key for this course is. We are trying to produce out of this, when you get your students through this course, they take the Cyberops Associate exam. And one thing I will mention too is that the Cyberops Associate exam and the CompTIA CYSA Plus, I passed Cyberops Associate, and then I took maybe a week or 2 and studied a CYSA Plus book and went and passed the CYSA Plus. So there's a lot of overlap there that I think if you want to kind of suggest your students do both certifications, they can. But we're trying to produce level 1 SOC analysts inside by completing them through this course. Now, a SOC itself, Security Operations Center, typically larger organizations have their own SOCs, medium to large organizations, but we have processes, people, and technology inside of here. So we have inside the SOC, there's typically these levels of folks: a tier 1 alert analyst. So they monitor those alerts, verify an incident has occurred, and then forward it up to tier 2 if necessary. Then you got a tier 2 who does more deep inspection and decides on remediation actions to be taken. So what are we going to do? Do we need to reload that system completely? Do we need to report this to the FBI? Do we need to, what is this? What level of response do we need to have? You have the tier 3 threat hunter, which is the expert who has moved all the way up to be a SME or a subject matter expert who is actually actively looking 4 new day zero attacks that are taking place and other types of exploitations of the systems. And then you got the manager who's on running the SOC and ensuring day-to-day operations. We're preparing our students to be these level 1 analysts. And luckily there's a lot of jobs in that. And so we've got these tier 1 folks that are going to monitor the incidents, open tickets, and do basic threat mitigation. And most time they're doing that through this security information and event management system. So they're going to have a SIM that they use. They'll look at different event collection off of logs and then correlate those logs, make analysis of those logs, and then make a determination whether or not an actual event took place. Many times those tier 1 folks then just pass it up to a tier 2 and say, this looks to me like something has happened. We need you to do a deeper investigation of it. And then they can even patch it up, push up to tier 3 if they need additional help. The SOC of tomorrow is starting to use this new, well, the monitoring system here. You got network flows from NetFlow, you've got network traffic, system logs from servers, from TFTP logs from your different devices, endpoint data from your host. All of that goes in to try to make sense. Now, the big thing here is, how do we make sense out of all of this to determine if an actual attack has taken place? A new technology that's being introduced is called SOAR, Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. And one of the funny things that's going on is that they're talking about 15% of organizations with more than 5 people in their SOC team will use SOAR. In some ways, SOAR is going to replace level 1 analysts, or make it where we need fewer level 1 analysts, because it's basically going to be using AI, and that AI is going to look at the events and information from the SIM itself, and then make either recommendations or through automation even execute some remediation. So it could go in and start a response process before we ever actually before it moves it up to level 2. So that is going on. And if you do any reading on AI, that's one of the places AI is really starting to be used, is in the SOAR systems, and in the ability to look at security logs and make a decision. What's really scary is, in a world of AI attacks, we as humans can't respond at the speed of an AI. And so we're going to need AI defenses basically to help defend against these different attacks. But it's a cool new world that's coming out, no doubt. SOC metrics. This is one, the dwell time, the amount of time that the threat actors had in a network before they were detected. In the case of my wife's, the business that she was dealing with, they were in about a month. It was just 2 days, less than a month before they were found. So that's pretty bad, by the way. They were there an entire month without being known that they were in. Mean time to detect is the average time it takes for them to identify a security incident has occurred. Mean time to respond, how long it takes them to respond and remediate, so fix the issue. Or mean time to contain, how do you actually stop the incident from causing further damage? And if it's malware, it's time to control. How do you stop that spread? How do you keep it from actually automatically spreading itself to other devices in your network? For large organizations, some of them are starting to outsource part of their SOC. You know, they hire other SOC vendors, and those vendors are responsible for monitoring for that particular company. Cisco has several different things that they have with PCERT, product security team, computer security, incident response team, TAC ops. They have multiple different things that you can basically purchase services from Cisco. The big thing though is this: you need to realize that security versus availability. My goal for Netlabs, by the way, Netlabs, our system is going to be down. If you look at when you log in, there's a little login thing. I've got to do some unplanned maintenance on Friday from 2:30 to 3:30. Netlabs will be down. We got to fix a server memory issue. My goal for Netlabs is to be up 4 nines, so no more than 53 minutes per year of downtime. That's, knock on wood, that's very hard to do. But if you want 7 nines or 6 nines, look at the kind of time you've got to be able to be up. Imagine a system that's only down 3 seconds per year. You can build it, but it has to be massively redundant. I mean, to the point of not being something you can really even afford. As security increases, your availability decreases. So the more security steps you put in place, the harder it is for people to use your network. But you have to make that decision. What level do you want? And so that gives you a good idea. When I started looking at this, you think about, 5 nines is 5 minutes per year. That's almost unrealistic for some systems, but 4 nines, that's what we're gunning for. Don't always get it, but it's what we're gunning for. So last thing here, we want you to become Cyberops Associate Certified. All right. We also know that if you pass this, as I've proven, you're pretty close to getting this CYSA Plus. So I would try to get both if I were you, when you finish this class. And that's what we're trying to get our students. And I also talk about Python and Linux skills are pretty big things with any type of security job, which is very true. Okay. And that's the first 2 modules, folks. And like I said, they're pretty simple. And then we'll get straight into the Windows operating system, Linux, and networking protocols as we move forward. So any questions on anything we've gone over? Any questions on our Virtualbox lab setup? Okay. Any questions on this? Are we everybody pretty clear on it? Pretty happy with it?
The 2 certifications, you said you can get both of them. What's the difference between the 2? Is there any major difference between the 2 certifications?
There is. You just need to look at the objectives on each one. There's a lot of overlap in the objectives, but they're pretty close. So I would just say, as far as differences, probably Cisco's Cyberops Associate may hold more weight right now. The CYSA Plus is a newer exam that came out. Let's see here. And so you can go to actually CYSA Plus on CompTIA's website, and you can actually download their exam objectives. I'm not going to do it here right now. You have to always put like blah.com, but you can download them and compare the objectives, but they're pretty close to what's in Cyberops Associate. Just remember with Cisco, we are now, Cisco has started with its certifications. There's the Cyberops Associate, Cyberops Prep, there it is. So Cyberops Associate is one of their exams. There's going to be others. I think they're going to build an entire Cyberops track. Okay, right now they've just got basically Cyberops Associate, and they're working on this Cyberops Professional. So we've got this, and then you'll have Cyberops Professional, and there'll be additional exams and things you have to take here. Okay, so you've got to take that core exam there, and then you'll have to take that. So there is a pathway now. You can see there's actually a pathway from like CCNA to CCNP. There's Cyberops Associate up to Cyberops Professional. Likewise, DevNet Associate to DevNet Professional. So I would say concentrate on getting Cyberops Associate because there's a follow-up path. But if you want, grab that CYSA Plus as an additional certification. So questions? Questions about Netlabs, about our Netlabs that you can use? Questions about the process for the class as far as what you need to be doing. You need to be reading the modules, read modules 1 and 2, and then upload once you finish. Just remember, according to the syllabus, you don't have to do every single lab in this class. I'm only asking you to do 25 module labs of your choice. Now, if you want to do every single one of them, I'll look at them and I'll give you grades on them. So be aware of that. But right now, just you may want to pick those that you want to do and focus on the ones that actually are hands-on labs so that you'll have those. The other ones are written labs that are fairly easy for you to look at and know what the students should be doing. So, any questions?
When will you be activating the exams?
As soon as everybody redeems their seat token, which I've got 1 or 2 holdouts. So hopefully that will be done tomorrow. And as soon as it is, I will turn on the exams for you and I will let you know. So hopefully by tomorrow, late tomorrow afternoon, I'll have them turned on for you. And I apologize, but when you activate an exam, it only activates for everybody who's currently in the class. So I'm just waiting for classmates all of them to redeem their seat token and get in class. So I think we're real close. We should have it by tomorrow easily. Okay. Any other questions? All right, we got a chat question here. Let's see what we got here. Very good point. Kirby makes a point. If you want to take CYSA Plus and you're a CompTIA academic partner, you can get a large discount on the vouchers for your students. Plus, your institution gets a couple free vouchers every year. So that's a good point. If you're a member of CompTIA's academic partnership, you can get discounts on the CYSA Plus. So don't forget that. Excellent point, Kirby. Thank you.
In order to be Academy instructor for this course,
Yep.
we're just taking it as students now.
Correct.
What's the steps that would be needed to become an Academy instructor? And then is it required that you must have the certification also before you start teaching it?
No, once you finish this course and I accredit you, you will be allowed to teach this course to students, okay? Not to other instructors, but to other students. You are not required to get your certification. That is no longer a requirement by Cisco. Now, I strongly recommend it. I have Cyberops Associate, and I strongly recommend that you get it too. I'm required to have it because I'm teaching other instructors. But since you're only, and I say only, I don't mean it that way, but since you're teaching in your student classes, they don't require you to have your certification. I personally always recommend you have it. That's just my thing. As far as teaching the course itself, once you complete this course and I accredit you, you're going to be able to teach it to your students. I like to be able to say, yes, I've done what I'm asking you to do. So if I'm asking you to take the exam, I expect it for me to take the exam.
Is it also have to recert every 3 years, but is it the same as the CCNA, or is it?
It is. It's the same every 3 years. You either that or pass a higher level exam, and then that will recert it. Yep. And they do have ways now, and it's still very convoluted, but they have ways to recert by doing things like continuing education credits. But that whole process has been very, very slowly rolled out and not rolled out very well, quite honestly. So it's there, but it's not a process. You're better off just retaking the exam right now, quite honestly.
Especially if you're an instructor and you're teaching your students, you're better
exactly.
off taking the exam.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have it. Plus, like I said, there are, if we look at our discounts here, if we look under certification exams and discounts, we do have, and you will get a discount. Let me see if I got the discount process here. See if I can find the one.
Is it similar to the new CCNA that they just rolled out, or is it, how is it?
Yep, you will get a discount of 60% if you make a 70 or higher on the final exam for this course first try. So you will get a Cyberops Associate discount. So
is it similar to the CCNA where they have 105 questions and?
The one I can't give you exact details, but the one I took wasn't that long. I'll just tell you that. It was a little shorter. But it is very similar. Yeah, it's a Pearson VUE test, just like all the other ones. Okay. So again, if you make a 70 or higher on the final exam for this course, then I will mark you as complete and you will get a discount voucher for this particular course. Okay. All right, folks, I'm going to stop sharing. Any other questions? I'm going to stop the recording.